HASHEEM THABEET, born February 16, 1987. This story is of a guy few can relate to. A story that if you didn't wear the same shoes, you may think, man, what a lucky guy. He gets to do all the things he wants because of a gift given to him. He must be really happy about that. Or you may say, man, life just isn't fair. This guy has everything I wanted, all because he's tall. And you know what? Neither of those things are far from the truth. Thabeet is both those things. A guy that's literally a statuesque figure in his hometown, but a letdown to some outside of his circle. Why isn't a guy this tall and this fit to play at the highest levels not in the NBA? Here's 3 reasons. Stunt number 1, love cannot be developed. Love, what a word. Maybe the most impactful word in the history of intellect. A word that is so many things. A great feeling, an appreciation for a thing or a person, a respect sign, an expression used in moments of intense passion, and also a word that, contrary to many beliefs, cannot be developed in my eyes. Love, when it relates to a thing, is something you either have or can't locate within yourself easily, or something you just don't have at all. Even a baby knows his mom and dad and instinctively loves them and knows they love him too. When it comes to basketball, you either love it or you don't. Well, JC, how can you recognize if a person or yourself has that naturally? It's simple. Take away the most obvious gift a person has related to basketball and see if that person still wants to partake in the sport. Example, Russell Westbrook. Let's take away his athleticism. His most glaring gift. Do you think he'd still want to play had he not been so athletic and explosive? I definitely think so. He'd be Chris Paul. Let's take Chris then. Let's take away Chris's top 3. Quickness, ball handling, and passing. Do you think he'd still want to play the game? I definitely think so. He'd be Patrick Beverley. Not so bad, right? A guy that's just as ferocious, just as good of a leader, and still made it to the league. Although not easily, but he did it. He loves the game. They love the game, and it's evident. When I think of a guy like Thabeet, I don't see a guy that loves the game. I don't see a guy that if you take away his main gift, would still A, want to play the sport, or B, become just as successful at it. Let's try it out. We'll take away his height, his most natural gift. A 6'2" HASHEEM THABEET is not in the NBA, guaranteed. In fact, I don't even think a 6'2" Thabeet, much less even plays the sport of basketball. You see, growing up, his favorite sport was soccer, a sport played and naturally loved by many in countries like his. Whenever you see a guy doing anything without shoes, he loves that shit. It's for these examples, HASHEEM didn't even begin playing basketball until he was 15 years old, until a scout saw how tall he was and offered him a pair of shoes and a jersey to come play on the basketball court instead of the soccer field like he did every day. In fact, the scout/coach told Thabeet that this is what he was going to do for the rest of his life. All HASHEEM needed to do was say okay, much less than you needed to do, right? Love cannot be developed, and when you do, longevity is never a product of that development. HASHEEM would take his gifts to Cypress Christian School in Houston, Texas, where he was a 4-star recruit that earned offers from schools like UConn, Louisville, and Cincinnati. He would eventually choose Connecticut, where big men and flashy guards seemed to historically mesh perfectly. But HASHEEM was still such a raw talent, having just started playing not too long ago. Stunt number 2, late bloomer. I'll give you guys a little part of my story. When I was younger, we lived in a not so prosperous neighborhood. My mom wanted to protect me from that, so she didn't allow me outside as much as I wanted to. So what I would do is watch my friends from my room window play basketball for hours. Maybe that's the reason I love the technical side of the sport so much to this day, and can see little things in a person's game they can fix and be great. It's also the reason I was too a late bloomer. Thabeet, starting to play at the age of 15, most definitely stunted his development by not allowing him to develop the footwork, mechanics, feel, IQ, and natural fight for the game. He was as raw as they came. In his freshman year at UConn, it was evident. He would look lost and in the way on offense, and on defense, he'd look like a work in progress. Don't get me wrong, imagine a guy that averaged 3.8 blocks a game, a work in progress on defense, right? But that's what he looked like. He didn't look like he knew what he was doing. Instead, just used his natural 7'3" frame to deny college talent at the rim. Had he been more in tune, he'd average 6 to 8 blocks a game. By the end of the season, he averaged 6.2 points per game along with those 4 blocks, an all Big East rookie team. As a sophomore, he began to scratch the ceiling of his defensive potential. For example, in a game against Notre Dame, he ended with a career-high 10 blocks. The guy was a natural. Having that skill, not knowing what to do with it, and still ended up doing things 99% of people can't is spectacular and so lucky for him. He would win Big East Defensive Player of the Year that season and all Big East second team. What? Second team? How? The guy averaged 10 points, 7 rebounds, and 4.5 blocks. That's first team, right? Nah. Although he was a terror on defense, he was still a guy that hadn't developed the necessary skills offensively to be a well-rounded player and garner those type of awards. Stunt number 3, an empty bag. Take away Thabeet's defense and what do you have? See, this is where that love for the game comes in and carry you to places you never knew you could approach. Without defense, HASHEEM really had nothing left in his bag that could make him more of a player. His offense by his junior year was a lot better than his first 2 seasons, but still not to the levels he'd need to become a great and not just a guy that made it. But improve is something that he did, and on the 31st of January 2009, he earned his first triple-double with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 blocks. By the end of his junior season, he was the National Defensive Player of the Year, Second Team All-American, and Big East Co-Defensive Player of the Year with DeJuan Blair. With those numbers, it's hard to keep a guy as an amateur, especially with a height as coveted as he had. And so by the end of his junior season and his first Final Four appearance, he declared for the NBA draft, where he was the number 2 pick by the Memphis Grizzlies. Although I don't think he could have done much more in college, I do think his game was still not ready, and that's due to the late start he had. If you watched him as a junior, he still looked like there was room to grow, like there was still an unsureness around him at times. But being that tall and guaranteed to be a top 2 pick, you can't pass that up. Bonus, stunt number 4, a premature meal. As a rookie, Thabeet had flashes of being exactly what the Grizzlies needed. His game was beginning to look a lot more polished and confident, but in typical Grizzly fashion, they had unjust expectations and dealt with the entire Thabeet situation the wrong way, and it kinda sucks for a guy like that. He was still feeling his way around the game, having only just started playing 7 years prior to being drafted, but found himself in a situation with an organization that was in such a hurry to go nowhere. He wasn't ready to be a number 2 overall pick, and he definitely wasn't ready to become a first-year star like the organization obviously thought he should be. Thabeet would play in 68 games as a rookie, averaged 3 points a game, 1 block, and 3 rebounds, while only playing 13 minutes. He would also see some time in the D-League, becoming the highest drafted player to be sent there. What was Memphis thinking? Your number 2 overall pick to the D-League? They made that move a bit prematurely in my opinion, and I think it fractured his confidence and lessened his love for the sport. He was then traded in just his 2nd season to the Rockets and became even less productive ever since, later playing for the Trail Blazers and Oklahoma City Thunder to cap off his less than 10-year career. Not what was expected of him, and I think because he was such a late bloomer, along with basketball just not being a thing he loved, having a close to empty bag, and not given the opportunities he needed for a guy learning so late, he didn't stick. He would go on to spend more time in the D-League with a few more NBA teams and eventually in Japan. All in all, he still had a lot more than most would dream of having, but having it isn't always enough when you could care less. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.